right, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer. And it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Aman. How's everybody doing? Welcome. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste, Hosayo, Anakituya, Ohio, Manut, Akwaba, Etese, Habarigani, Jambo, Mimini Kofi, Nina Faranka Jambo, Mimini Kofi, Nina Faranka Kukutana Wewe, Shabbat Shalom, or excuse me, Shalom, Barak Allah Sham Yahava, Shalom Allah Sham Yahava, Ana Kofi, hello to servants of Christ, Mashalom Hey. Hello, everybody. I'm Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken here for the evening session. Thanks for joining us. Normally, this would be at about 8 p.m., coming on a little bit early tonight since we have classes. We got to do Sovereignty 1, Sovereignty 3 tonight. Probably do the same thing tomorrow, come on a little bit early tonight. But we appreciate those coming on. How you doing, Kwan? To everybody who's on, we appreciate you on TikTok, on YouTube. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. We appreciate your presence. And tonight's Q&A. So even though we only have a few people to start, we'll probably be gathering some folk in a little bit. But if you guys have questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to go ahead and ask. How you doing, Sister Nadine? How you doing, Sister Monica? How you doing, Keith? How you doing? To Joyce, to Hub, Grayson. I don't know who's still on and who's not on, but everybody who's on. If I miss your name, charge it to my head, not to my heart. We appreciate you. And so tonight's Q&A. And some of you might be new to this. They've been messing with our channels and stuff like that, our pages and stuff like that all over the place. So some of you might have no clue about what we normally talk about, or some of you might know exactly what we're talking about, but we're spending this time, especially during this season where we have class, we're spending this time allowing everybody to go ahead and get as much questions in as they can. Normally people say, hey, people don't allow us to ask questions, do this about certain things. So we love to be able to give people a chance to ask questions. So fire away. I'm going to be coming from a cultural perspective. We ask that you guys respect each other, respect the humanity of others. So please, sir, if you can do that for us, that would be great. However, we give you the opportunity now to be able to speak your mind, speak your piece, see what's going on, and we thank you again. We appreciate you. So any questions, comments, or concerns? I could say about anything. I don't know about anything, or I don't have all the answers for everything that's ever existed, but you guys go ahead and fire away. Let's see where we go. How you doing, Miss Morel? How you doing, Brother Jerry? Any questions, comments, or concerns? Anything about the series? Anything about what we were talking about earlier, this rising? Anything we can do to help out? How you doing, Bingo Bingo? I mean, we can talk about marriage. We can talk about sovereignty a little bit. How you doing, Bounty? Here's Sister Rhonda. We can talk about, I don't know, capitalism. We can talk about, we can talk about, people have been asking about, they feel kind of trapped in certain things. People have questions about the bank situations. People have questions about the presidency. Okay, we got something to oh, wow. Okay, we're praying for you, Sister Deborah. Hopefully everything is hopefully you feel better. So what is the proper attire for a wife and a husband to wear for the Israelite wedding? Well, if you're talking about the Israelite wedding, the white dress and the suit and tie and all that stuff's not necessary. Really, we would probably wear something, that was a little more gaudy, I guess, than normal. But yeah, it depends on what tribe we're kind of going with or whatever. I mean, probably something, probably a nice chemise. When I say chemise, the brother would probably be wearing something, maybe not all the way down to his ankles, but something that flows really well. The sister would be wearing something that we would think of as almost like if you were to look at some African weddings, not the white dresses, but look at some of the African weddings and some of what the sisters wear for their dresses that are big time, especially stuff that's like, even like when you think Nollywood, if you know what I'm talking about there. something along those lines would be fine. But really, that's something that can be talked about when you're getting ready to get married. The main thing is probably the ceremonial aspects and certain things that will be done, said, even dances that would probably be done, things like that. And then, of course, the vows would be done in a certain sense, even though they should be being done through coaching, getting ready for marriage. So there's not really a specific, you have to wear this, have to wear that type thing. But traditionally, there are probably some things that we would look into wearing. So probably something like that. And then, of course, you would have people that would be signing affidavits. You would have people that would already, would be agreeing with you. We would have a contract that both of you has written, things like that. That stuff is going to be the stuff that'll last. You said, how do I feel about the emerald tablets? The emerald tablets, I haven't studied extremely well. I know enough about the emerald tablets to know that there's a lot of Alpha or Hebrew or Paleo Hebrew writing in it. As far as the emerald tablets are concerned, we're dealing more with Thoth. Thoth is something where you're dealing with a lot of Kemetic, Babylonian, Assyrian, Nubian, Cushitic type of things in there. Um, and it's, I don't know, depending on what you believe, some people believe Thoth to have actually been a real person who then became a deity after he died. Maybe some truth to that or whatever. Is everything in there correct? I would say no. Um, but I'm not prepared to really go too much deeper than that. I'm still studying, still trying to see what parts are real and stuff itself. And there's some stuff that probably we may never know, at least on this side of Zion. Um, so that's about all I can give you on that. Sorry, Bingo. Um, you said you're not your hair, okay? Or I'm not my hair, boo. Okay, how you doing? Great question so far. How you doing? IWHJ. How you doing, Sister Gertrude? How you doing, Cipher? Thanks for the love, by the way. Then hopefully, once again, Sister Deborah, hopefully your hand is feeling better. How you doing, Big Brother Thomas? I sent you an email with, I'm going to try and resend everything again. Uh, I'm way behind when I was supposed to send it again, but I'm going to try to send everything to you again. So if you get a chance to look at the email, if you see anything on there that's certificate that you should be getting sent to you that you don't see on there, let me know. But you should at least have a bunch of virtual ones on there ready that have already been got to you. You said what? When are you going to do baptism? Baptism we kind of do whenever we can. So if I'm able to come to your city, if I'm able to come to your town, and we do a meetup, and you want to do baptism, we can do baptism just about anywhere. If we at a hotel, you want to do baptism, we'll dip you in. If you want to, if you up there in New York, and we, somewhere around there, I don't know where they let you sneak in at or whatever, but we need to go to the Jersey Shore. We need to do something like that. I mean, people say this is nasty, this is this is that, whatever. We need to go to wherever, we can get it in. we'll dip you in. But as far as plans, we don't really have anything planned as far as a huge meeting for everybody um, up until September. If you're coming down, for the Feast of Tabernacles. But other than that, yeah, pretty much just whenever we can get it in right now, or even if we can have ministerial staff that can do it for you as well. Unless you just feel like it absolutely has to be me, I don't think that's something you should necessarily think that it only can be myself who baptizes or whoever the head of whatever it is. But if that's what you would like, right now it's just for whenever we get the chance to travel. So whenever we get a chance to be over there, we got a few people that is already ready to get baptized and stuff, and we're just trying to figure out when we're gonna get there, the sickness and everything we're kind of dealing with and stuff behind the scenes that happened with family that kind of slowed a lot of stuff down. But we still gonna get it in there. How you doing, Minister Joseph? I see you on there. How you doing, CMO for sure? Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing, Brother TJ? Yep, great questions though. Any other questions? We still got a little bit of time before I got to take my leave and start getting ready for class tonight. How you doing, Darius? How you doing, Marley? Sister Latoya, I'm gonna try to get to you tonight. We got 2 classes tonight. It's gonna be really late, but I'm gonna try to get to you. Hopefully, you're hanging in there. I know you are. Right? Yeah. Any questions that y'all want? Y'all got us for a little bit more. Y'all got us for a little bit more. Man, I'm doing pretty well, Minister Joseph. Yeah, I sent it. I don't know. To be honest, I didn't check to see if you texted me back. I sent a text back saying that I saw that you had a question about it, and I was trying to see if it was possible to have called you, but I didn't get a chance to. I think it was Saturday, maybe. I tried to check in with you on Friday, something like that. So please forgive me for not. Please forgive me for not contacting you back or things like that. Yeah, I need to see because I think I have two numbers for you. So I need to double check, but one was answered in April that I sent it to. So I figured that was the correct one, but I might have to double check. I might just have the wrong number, or you might have changed the number and I just didn't change it. But we'll get it together. Maybe if you want to text me, and then I'll make it a point to in my phone make sure that I know that's the main one or whatever. All it takes is a mustard seed. Shalom to you. How you doing? You said you had a list of questions you asked, but you was busy. Okay, yeah. If it was a list, I might have missed. I don't remember the list, so I have to look and check. I'll be honest with you, my emails are like, so I definitely gotta. If you send anything via email, even text, technically my texts are all over the place too, but my emails are like way behind. So I'm trying my best to get those. Hey, how you doing, Sister Tracy? Yeah, but I think if you send it via Cash App, if it's the same Tory, we got like more than one Tory, I think, and I didn't realize it until recently. So if you send it Cash App, I think that we were able. I think that somebody let us know the donation came in. So okay, yeah, I believe we did send it. Matter of fact, when you send stuff there, we try to make sure that we respond. So we try to make sure we put a heart or something there to let you know that we did see it. So you should receive a heart or some kind of indication from us normally if you do it that way. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know the time before you did the chime thing. Yeah. So are the people of Kemet Canaanites? Nope. The people of Kemet are Kemetic, right? Um, Cush, Kemet, Put, and Canaan are the four sons of Ham. Ham's name meaning hot, or even people that are burnt by the sun, which is why Cush, which becomes Ethiopia, Ethiopia's name literally is it's a Greek name given to the Cushitic people, but or now what we call Nubians. But the Ethiopians, the word Ethiopia means people that are burnt by the sun. So Cush is the firstborn son. Kemet's the second-born son. So Cush empire would expand, but if we want to talk about just out of Ham, Cush is basically Sudan, Ethiopia, Eritrea, a little bit of Central Africa, right? Um, Cush, the second son. I'm sorry. So Cush, the first son. Kemet, the second son. And even if you don't believe in the Bible, people will still tell you that Cush came before Kemet. So either way, you still can use the same linear thinking. Um, Kemet is the next born, right? And Kemet actually, the Cushitic empires exist first. Then the Kemetic empire and the Kemetic dynasties come after that, right? Then you have puts. Puts, some people will say is more like Libya. Some people go a little further north with that, right? But that's one son where they went. And then Canaan. Canaan is where we would say the land of Yastel was, the land of Israel was. That's where Canaan would go to reside. And Canaan was the one that was cursed, by the way. When people say Ham was cursed in the Bible, that was something that was actually came from anti-black sentiment. And when they were doing the whole Negro land stuff and enslaving people there, they started calling. They not only did they call the people there Negroes, like they called the Negroes that were Israelites that were of, Jewish faith, etc. Right? Um, uh, what was I going to say? Sorry. Oh yeah, where they saw um, the Cushitic. Oh yeah. Well, where the Spanish and the Portuguese started calling Israelites up there who they defined as swarthy with locks in their hair and stuff like that, and said they lived in ghettos and stuff like that way, way hundreds of years before World War One. Right? They started calling them Negroes. Then went looking for them in Negro land because the Spanish knew, since the Spanish were actually underneath the Moors, and before that they were underneath the Greeks and the Romans, and and before that, they were underneath the Carthaginians, who would have been Phonetic or Phoenicians, right? And the Phoenicians, by the way, would have been Canaanites, and they would have been mixed with Israelite and Canaanite blood. So, yeah, when you're talking about that, Kemet is basically modern Egypt, if you will, right? Kush, like we said, there's talking about Sudan, Eritrea, Ethiopia, parts of Central Africa. Kush, you're talking about Libya more. In that area, some people say further up north, and then Canaan, you're talking about where they say modern Israel is. So those are different places. Those people were in different places. Shalom, how you doing, Anthony? Thanks for being on. You said, is there a certain meaning behind the word brass when it's used in the Bible, like how iron is referred to Rome? I mean, if we're talking, which verse are we talking about? Are we talking about Revelation? Are we talking about Revelation chapter 1? Because what somebody says in a vision or a dream can have a different meaning than what it means in the physical. But I have to see exactly, or like iron sharpens iron, things like that. So when you're talking about in the dream, right? Especially if we're talking like Daniel chapter 2, gold, silver, bronze, iron actually represents something different. If we're talking about iron as far as a weapon, just in general, and somebody saying iron sharpens iron, that's talking about the actual material that's used to make weapons, and that you sharpen iron with iron. If you want to make iron sharp, if you want to even shape iron, a lot of times you have to use iron to shape iron, at least at that time when the blacksmiths, or what we would call today blacksmiths, would deal with those things. If you're talking about the dream sequence, right? You have Daniel chapter 2, Babylon is gold, Medo-Persians is silver. The Greeks are bronze. That's why you have gold, silver, bronze. By the way, the Greeks thought when they started doing the Olympics, they thought that was them humbling themselves, saying that they'll make themselves third because they knew the order of the world. At least that for them, that was the order of the world powers. Then after that, you have the Romans. The Romans are of the Iron Age. Now we're if we're talking about iron, we could be talking about Rome. If we're talking about iron, we could be talking about swords, things like that. Now, when you say brass, um, brass. If we're talking about Revelation chapter 1, brass is actually telling us about a color, but also what are some things brass is known for? Brass are known for instruments. Brass are known not necessarily for weapons, even though they were used to garnish some of the weapons and things like that. But brass is something also that's great to be able to drink out of. So it holds water and it helps, it helps to get rid of certain impurities in water, stuff like that. So it depends on what we're talking about. It depends on the context. Depends on if we're talking about a dream, if we're talking about actual, real things that people are coming on. So it depends when we're talking about the metals. When we're talking about anything in the Bible, we have to see the context. That's why we always say when we talk about culture, we talk about context, contextual facts. We got to know what context we're talking in. For example, somebody will say, "Oh yeah, the water," and so whenever you see water, it's talking about the spirit, and whenever you see water, it's talking about this. Well, in a sense, we could take it there, right? But it depends too, because if you're talking about water in the dream, a lot of times water in the dream in the Bible is always going to refer to people. So, for example, in Revelation chapter 12, when Israel, the woman with 12 crowns, right, gives birth to the Messiah therefore comes, and then he does what Genesis 3 says, he's bruising his heel, but he ultimately smushes the enemy's head. He defeats the enemy. He gets on his way to heaven. The enemy's trying to still win, even though he's smushed in the head. He's trying to somehow get what we would call victory out of this. He's on his way up there. He ends up losing to the angels, gets kicked out. And so all the other angels, they can no longer get into the heavens at all from this point on. And it says that the serpent starts looking for the woman Israel, who's gone into the wilderness and separated herself from their civilization, the beast, right? The beast that will come, right? That it will create a civilization. She separated herself from there. So it says before the Satan actually creates the beast, it says first things first, he actually tries to attack Israel, the woman. It says the woman in the wilderness, that the clay comes up to protect the woman. And what did the devil use to attack the woman? Israel. It says that he used the water. The water represents the people, right? So he spit and spewed the water, or the people of the devil were spewed at those that were Israel. But Israel, who had come together, Yah had the earth, right? Because he is the potter, we are the clay. So whenever he uses the clay is his will. The clay even is something that can be used to protect or shape or mold his people. So whenever the devil sent his people in the water, the Most High shielded us with the clay, right? With the earth, right? And he uses that to be able to protect us. So once that's done, then it says that he goes and he looks for other, he starts looking for the remnant that's not attached to Israel, right? That needs to have us be a bridge so that they can come on over. And then the next chapter, chapter 13, you'll see that out of the water, out of the people, out of the water, out of the people comes the beast. So the beast looks just like the devil, but the beast is a government that comes from people that worship the devil, right? And it's supposed to reflect the devil. Therefore, the beast has 7 heads, just like the devil has 7 heads. The beast has 10 horns, just like the devil has 10 horns, right? It's supposed to reflect it, and it comes out of the people who worship the Satan. You said you thought it was ironic that before King James wrote his version of the Bible, he wrote on demonology. Well, yeah, well, even with King James, that's one thing that people sometimes leave out that we should be honest about. King James, who once again wrote a version of the Bible. It's one of the best that we have in Anglo-ish, but he wrote a version of the Bible, right? And King James was somebody who wasn't necessarily trying to be about the way, the truth, and the life. He actually was interested in religiosity, period, and history to a certain extent. So not only did he write a book about and he didn't write the book, by the way, just like he didn't write the Bible. He hired people to do so, to be able to teach about it, right? He wanted to know about it and make sure the truth about these things existed. But yeah, he wrote one about demonology. You also had to see that there's stuff he wrote about being a Muslim. You had to see that obviously he wrote one about the Bible, right? So there's many different canons and many different things that he tried to keep up with. So you can actually look for King James versions of different things besides just the Bible. How you doing, Mrs. Rhonda? Thanks for being on. I'm gonna be honest with you, Bingo. I gotta look that up. I got a blank spot in my head for that right now. How you doing, Divine Soul? You said, yeah, the dream sequence was so much was more was what you were talking about. Okay, yeah, yeah. So, and how you doing, Sister Betty? If I didn't say so already. So we have a tiny bit of time. Technically, I'm supposed to be taking my leave now because we got to get ready for class in about 15 minutes. But if somebody has one more, maybe 2 more questions, depending on how quickly it takes for me to answer. Anybody got 1 or 2 more questions before we take our leave for this evening? Thank you, everybody, for being on. Appreciate you. If you got Sovereignty 1 or Sovereignty 3, Sovereignty 1, I'll see you at 8:30 p.m. Eastern New York time in about 15 minutes. Everybody else, I'll see you in about an hour, 9:15 p.m. Eastern New York time. Are there 2 creation stories? No, there is not. We actually talk about this if you look at our playlist on YouTube and look up Genesis Revisited. We actually go over this. We had to repost it because they took down our former YouTube channel, so we had to start over. But we went back into the Genesis series to put it up again, and I'm actually working. I'm behind the 8 ball on that, but I got to make sure that I work on editing. We're going to try and put that in a little book, that series for you guys to be able to have with you, and to look up some things. But the Genesis Revisited series is really cool, as far as going into some of that stuff, because there's something that's key. You'll see generation and the earth created, and then you'll see chapter 2, verse 4, it starts with the generations. So what happened? So what we've been taught is that what most people think is that Genesis chapter 2 is a recap of basically Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 through 30 something. But the reality is that Genesis chapter 1 existed first. It's in order. Genesis chapter 2 comes after, or Barashat Aleph, then Barashat Bet. Now, one of the things that a lot of people aren't aware of is that you had competing, people, just like we always do. You got factions and fractions of this stuff, and people trying to make denominations. And so you had a certain denomination that was focused on, we need to be about Elohim, 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 and we're only focused on this part of creation. And then you have people that were focused on Yahweh. Matter of fact, in your Bible, when you read Genesis chapter 1, you'll see that through Genesis chapter 2, verse 3, you'll see that it always says, and God said, or we would say Elohim, but in the beginning, God said, created the heaven and the earth. And God said, let there be light. And God said, let the waters be separated from the waters. And God did. And God said, and God said, and God said, right? And God said it was very God or very good, right? You'll see that over and over again, because that means Elohim. They're only focusing on the title, and they're only focusing on one part of creation, right? But then Genesis chapter 2, first verse 4, you get there and it stops saying God said and it starts saying Lord God said, which translates to Yahweh Elohim, which means that now you have a group of people who are focusing on something else. So Moses, right? So Moses comes across this, knowing this, right? Because we've got this weird thing that we think that we forgot everything about ourselves. But Moses, even though he was raised in Kemet, always remembered that he was also an Israelite. And the Israelites still, even if they were slaves, they still, unlike chattel slavery today, even if they were slaves and went through some rough stuff as slaves, they were never quite treated like chattel slaves. So they still knew who they were, even though they were starting to have doubts about whether Yahweh would save them or not, or deliver them. Right. So Moses, when he finally starts putting the scrolls together, starts getting even some of the story of mankind, and even starts seeing some of the future was going to happen with law, and actually gets the download of stuff that's happened. If you pay attention to stuff like the book of Jubilees, chapter 1, and stuff like that, you'll discover that, Moses knew about this stuff. So Moses is like, why are we disconnecting this stuff? Kind of like the lost books today, why are we separating the book of Jubilees or the book of Jasher or the book of Enoch or the Chronicles of Noah or the whole Apocrypha, etc., right? Why are we separating? Why don't we look at the writings of Flavius Josephus? Why don't we look at Odoacer Equiano, right? Why don't we look at what the Spanish said about us at the times of the Spanish Inquisition? Right, you're kind of having the same thing back then. So Moses just basically says, well, if we're all talking about the same Elohim and the same earth, why not just put it in there? Right. So there's not really two creation stories. It's technically one. Right. Now, some people, because they know that it's weird to say there's a generation and then generations, what some people began to do, and I sat at the foot of somebody who did this, but it didn't make sense ultimately, was people that began to say, well, dinosaurs and stuff and all that stuff, that was one creation, or all these other versions of man that are extinct, that was one creation. I'll give you a little hint, but I can't go into it tonight. And people who are into the book of Enoch, I'll give you a little hint as well. Research, because everybody does all this stuff where it's like the angels, but see, a lot of people began to worship the angels and not even the creator. And the angels made many different things, including the angels made a lot of different animals. So when you hear stuff like, oh, this animal and this animal should have existed and this animal would have gone to the flood, if you notice, not every animal that existed that they dig up was on the ark. Dinosaurs existed after the flood, and we have dinosaurs mentioned in what is it, the fifth day or the fifth day. Right, with fish of the sea, and it also uses a term called tenayan. Tenayan is actually a Hebrew term. Tenayan, excuse me, is actually a term that's telling us about sea monsters or sea dragons or sea dinosaurs. So we never had a problem with that, right? It's not until, right, but then there were certain things that were created by the angels that came down, right, by the watchmen, right? When they came down, they actually made up stuff that wasn't supposed to be made up. So sometimes people still to this day are trying their best to figure out, yeah, we should make sure that we worship this, or we should do this, or Elohim had this, or why are they lying to us about that? There are certain things that Elohim didn't even want to come over because he didn't create it. If he didn't create it, it's modified. Just like today, if you try to patent something, right, that the Most High created, you can't own it. But if you have to modify it in order to take ownership. So a lot of things that we're talking about, including a lot of types of human beings that people are still trying to dig up and say, we need to know about them. And this is, and I'm not saying, because I don't have all the information, but some of the stuff we even call Anunnaki. Now, I'm not saying all of it, but some of it. If you do your research, you'll discover that people try to tie stuff there and saying everything came from space. Some of this stuff was made by angels who were fallen, who came down and tried to take on the form of man. which is why it's very easy for a lot of them to confuse us today if we're not careful, because you can have a situation where you're dealing with a lot of this. And I know some people, it sounds like I'm crazy, but I'm just telling you, do a little research. This is why I'm very slow to talk about Enoch, because Enoch has been something to where a lot of people use it to support whatever way they want to go versus what it's actually saying. Bring a whole bunch of different things that are not even parts of our tribe or our people and say, you see what works in somebody else's culture, what they say, that's what works for us. I said, no, I'm not crazy. Yeah. I'm just saying for some, I know if you haven't gone through some of that, right? And that's why I'm very careful. I'm very selective when I put Enoch in there, because even a lot of stuff that we use as reference points for Enoch, some of that stuff is controlled by people that we probably don't want to go to. Right. So I'm just saying, when you look at it, a lot of the stuff that you even see, as far as you'll be like, oh, well, what about this animal? This animal, yeah, those animals did exist. Yeah, those bones do exist. Yeah, there are giants. There are this, there are that. But those are not things that the Most High ever created. So since He didn't create them, He never asked for them to be brought two by two, or to be brought in sevens. Right. So the Watchmen were doing wild stuff and coming with a lot of different things. And when they took on the bodies of men, they put a lot of spiritual stuff into man that was never supposed to be in there. And it was fallen spiritual stuff. It wasn't straight up angel DNA. That's another thing. See, once the angels sin, when you sin, you modify the DNA, because now you have it formulaic. It's an artificial version of what the Most High said. That's one of the reasons you had to be cleansed or covered by the blood, because something lawful had to take place to be able to cover those things, even in your DNA memory. Right? So you if you're not careful, you can be pulling around corrupted DNA memories. You see? So it's a lot of different stuff in there, right? There's a lot of different stuff when you hear people say this, or people say, oh, you see this is what they believed in Kemet. And now let's take, going back to what somebody asked earlier, right? Let's take the emerald tablets and let's see this, and see, now that you see the emerald tablets, you see it goes with the book of the dead, and you see that the book of dead and the emerald tablets, and Enoch mentions this. And if you look at this, then it has to mean this, and this person actually means this in this land. And it's like you're mixing and matching a little too much, because none of these people agree with anything that you're saying. The Kemetic people don't agree about what you're saying about that mixing them with the Israelites. The Israelites do not agree with what you're saying about put it with what Thoth wrote, right? So we have to be careful about that. We really have to be careful about that, right? I'm not saying and I'll be the first to tell you, I'm literally not willing to say that I'm an expert on Enoch as of yet, because I've had to literally throw away so many years of fallacy. Like when I started realizing how much mixing and matching of culture there is now, right? So I'm just telling you, like, you got to take your time with that, and you got to at least like be cultural with it, and you got to at least start in the culture it came from. If you're talking about Enoch, see, watch this. If you're talking about Enoch, you got to talk about Seth. If you're talking about Seth, you got to look at how Seth lived. Do you know how Seth lived? You got to talk about Adam. Do you know how Adam and Eve lived? You got to talk about the opposite of how Cain lived. Cain lived in the land of wandering, right? You got to talk about how ultimately Noah would live. Do you know about Noah and Lamech and Methuselah and Enoch all connected to each other? Right? Do you know about Methuselah, who would have preached with Noah? You see what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of stuff that has to be connected culturally first, right? Before we can even get to a place of, now let's have a discussion about what some of these things mean. So it can become very difficult. And how you doing? Is that Sister Amanda? I think that is. You change your name on me? At least I don't remember that being your name. I remember I remember the last part of it. I don't remember the first part, but praise God, if that's who I think it is. And thanks for being on. Right? So I'm just saying, we got to be careful. No, that's the same name that was there. Oh, that's not Amanda. It's not Sister Amanda? Or you didn't change your name? I apologize. It is. Okay. You didn't change your name. Okay, my bad. All right. Right. But so those are things, but those are great questions. We got like 5 minutes. So if somebody has a question, it's gonna have to be something I can answer in like 30 seconds. And we gotta roll out. We gotta get ready for Sovereignty 1, Sovereignty 3. If somebody got a question, gotta be real quick. Real quick, real quick, real quick. Amanda, I'll be having too many names to try and remember and stuff like that. So charge it to my head and not to my heart. But thank you for being on. Appreciate you. Hopefully all is going well with you and your family. You said ethnicity of Cleopatra? As in, what ethnicity was Cleopatra? Okay, well, I hope that's what you're saying. I don't have time to go back over real quick because I got to get ready for class. But hopefully, I'm gonna be right in that assumption, Sister Kimberly. If not, forgive me, because sometimes when you make an assumption, you know what they say you do. But Cleopatra herself was not Kemetic. She's not Kemetic. She's of something called the Ptolemaic dynasty. So if you're dealing with Kemet, right? Remember there were Cushitic dynasties, then there was a Kemetic dynasty. Then the Greeks started knocking on the door, right? They started trying to take over, right? The Cushitic Empire then came and actually took back over Kemet to try and actually help and say, okay, we're going to fight for you guys. Ultimately, they had to turn and they had to run. It was actually very embarrassing for the last Cushitic or Kemetic dynasty, and they rolled out. And when they rolled out, the people of Kemet were taken over. That's where you get these terms like Egypt, Egypticos, which is where you get like hieroglyphics. It's like Egypticos. It's a way of saying Egyptian writings, but Egyptian writings are Greeks trying to take over the culture or appropriating the culture of the people of Kemet, right? Just like the people of Kemet appropriated the culture of Kush. So we're going to keep it real. But nevertheless, you have this stuff happening, right? And Cleopatra, she comes from what's called the Ptolemaic dynasty. So Alexander the Great conquers, if you will, Egypt in many different places, right? Alexander the Great, because even though he had a wife, he was not into his wife sexually, and he was more into his boyfriend, or whatever you want to call him, sexually. He dies, he has no heir to the throne. But there were 4 generals under him. So the 4 generals basically on his deathbed just split up the kingdom. Ptolemy, who's Greek, he takes over Kemet or Egypt. And basically that's where the Ptolemaic dynasty comes. So there's something like 30 something people who were from his family, the Ptolemaic dynasty, who ruled over, and until Rome finally crushes the Greeks down there. Until that happens, basically right after Julius Caesar and Mark Antony messing with Cleopatra, up until then, it's still in the Greek rule until the Romans come and crush it, and then later on it'll be crushed by those who were still there today, in a sense, right? People who we call Arabic, even though Arabic doesn't mean what we think it is. So Cleopatra's from the Ptolemaic dynasty. Matter of fact, the only reason Cleopatra ruled, technically Cleopatra and her brother were supposed to rule simultaneously. When Cleopatra's father died, who had the name Ptolemy. There's so many Ptolemies in the Ptolemaic dynasty. There's so many different people named Ptolemy. It's kind of hard to keep up. But her brother was named Ptolemy. Her younger brother, like a child, and she was the oldest by far of all the children. They started having to fight. Rome came in there. Caesar came in there looking for money. They fought against Caesar. Caesar basically ended up backing Cleopatra. Cleopatra wanted the throne, and she was tired of the fact that a lot of people, they were dealing with misogyny, so they thought that the little boy should rule, and also they felt like the little boy could be controlled because he was little. So they fought for him to be king. They fought against Caesar. Cleopatra, basically, like, there's a famous story of her literally putting herself in a sack, having a servant pull her in the sack and overnight and carry her for like a day, 2 days. And then she finally gets in the presence of Caesar. And when she does, then they make this pact. Eventually Caesar wins. Cleopatra and him have a child together, and then Caesar's killed. Cleopatra then tries to make, tries to get a relationship with Mark Antony to be able to protect the child of Caesar, and also has some other children, and hopes that they'll be able to sit on the throne one day. And then once Rome finally squashes everything that's going on in Egypt, then that was the end of the Ptolemaic dynasty, which means that was the end of the Greeks being over Rome. So Cleopatra is not Kemetic. Cleopatra is not Roman. Cleopatra is Egyptian, but that would mean that she's Greek. And so Cleopatra is not part of any Kemetic or Cushitic dynasty. She's not part of any African dynasties, if you will. She's part of a Greek dynasty. Now, you still have to be careful, though, because we forget that the Greeks back then, people who we would consider to be Greek, they looked like the same color as us. They had the same color as us. They looked like us. Matter of fact, with King Leonidas of Sparta, he would have had locks. Would have been dark skinned. So, yes, Cleopatra is not Kemetic, but she's also not white by colonial or social construct. Anyways, thank y'all for being on. I got to take my leave. I'll see you guys tomorrow on Kofi _Ofori. Not Kofi_42, not Kofi_43. I'll see you tomorrow in the rise at 8 a.m. Eastern New York time on Kofi_40. We got to get ready for class Sovereignty 1, and then we'll have Sovereignty 3 right after that. Sister Latoya, I will try my best as soon as that's over. I think it's like 7 p.m. your time. I'll try my best to reach out to you. It'll have to be brief, but at least I can kind of check in with you. Hopefully you guys are there. I'll talk to you guys later. And okay. All right. Talk to you guys soon. Y'all have a great time at your Bible study. I love that y'all are coming together and still having Bible study. We'll talk to you guys soon. Thank y'all so much. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servants of Christ, where we're always changing lives one mind at a time. Please check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N. Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And until next time, please remember, family, that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you are fearfully, wonderfully made in you, which is all of us working together. Will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom. Peace.